Hi, this is Michael Dandrea, and we are featuring another edition of Taking It to the Streets. This video will be looking at David, a homeless gentleman who has a disability, and this video is intended to have mental health practitioners think about the narrative that comes from David and strategies for interventions that might be useful, whether they be direct counseling or advocacy, prevention, interventions. So let's take it to the streets and see what David has to say in telling his story.
You know, this is the first of a series of conversations I'd like to have with you. And we've gone through your personal history and went back to your grandfather, your father, your own family situation. And it really helps me understand how and why you understand the challenges and problems faced by people without homes so well, and in a more complex system. Now, my career is in mental health. As a mental health professional, and a lot of times we have focused in on helping individuals learn to cope with stresses so that they could go back to a situation and make it within the status quo. Fortunately, in the last 15 years, there has been an organization of counselors called Counselors for Social Justice.
Oh yeah, that's the ones that we're meeting here.
Yeah, that's right. So on the one hand, we use traditional approaches to meet, have one-to-one or family therapy, but we also look at ways to actively work to deal with the problems on a more, what do they call it, contextual, a systems basis.
A whole body, mind, and soul.
That's exactly right. So I'd like to have the next interview not only review some of this important information, but to get into your recommendation as an expert with a person without a home. But let's take just a couple of minutes before we end this interview to kind of get ready for our next discussion. What would you hope psychologists, social workers, counselors can do to deal with this problem that you've experienced personally?
Well, God, that's a hard one. I think somehow they have to get out of the box there in a way, because unfortunately, the social workers and all that kind of stuff, they're kind of stuck inside the system too, and of course they have to make their own living and that kind of stuff. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
At that homeless, in the next step homeless shelter, they had this kind of a joke about a little social help. I'll never forget this social worker. She had just got her MSW and she's gotten certified, and she was so excited about what to do. They were using interns to
address the needs of people without homes.
Yeah, or to basically talk therapy and that kind of stuff. And this chick, I won't name her because I don't want, but she was all really wanted to do good, but she was working inside the system that it was kind of a joke, and she was informed from her college education about what to do and what the resources were and everything like that. Well, how can I say this? God, okay, I'm in the homeless shelter. My wife and my son are out in the Kylo in the park. Okay, my wife breaks her hip. She falls down on the sidewalk, breaks her hips. She ends up in the hospital for about a month getting operation and a little rehab. Not enough. And then they're dumped. Oh, here's another big one. Talk about social ills in this country. Hospital dumping. You don't hear a lot about this, but this is going on all across this country. They dump people that need, after the hospital, you're getting major surgery, they'll dump them
on the streets.
On the streets.
Yep.
Well, that happened. My dear wife, she was at Paso Hospital. They put her in a taxi, and they dumped her in the park, and she could not even walk. They gave her a walker that she couldn't even use. She was in the park. I was doing whatever I could from the street to help her. For a whole year, I was trying to get these social groups, IHS, to come out, these outreach workers. Kuli, Kalama, healthcare for the homeless. Even the crisis.
Crisis Care Center?
Yeah, or what do they call that? The Suicide and Crisis Center.
Yeah.
And they come up, but none of them. They take notes and they said, we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Well, this went on for about a year.
Yeah.
A whole year.
Wow.
In the meantime, my wife got arrested, put in jail for camping in the park 3 times, I think it was.
She was arrested 3 times.
Yeah, put in the old Triple C.
Still healing from this operation.
Right. And she wasn't given any kind of care in jail, and they just put her in there for about 4 or 5 days, and then they dump her from the jail. You know, this is another thing people don't realize. You get dumped in the jail, and especially if you're a short time person. Then not even some bus fare or anything like that. No, you can't make any phone calls. Luckily, there was somebody with a cell phone out there,
and whatever care services are available that are employing social workers, counselors, or psychologists, they're using talk therapy to do what?
Yeah.
What are they using?
Well, I can say it's feel good, and it's nice. I've taken advantage of that. I remember I called the suicide crisis people, and it's been kind of nice because I can express myself, and it's kind of good talk therapy, and then that's nice. But besides that, remember, I had this one. I won't mention her name too, bless her heart. But she was in tears because she said, "Dave, you know what? I know all kinds of things, but I said, you know, these things are broken. They're just so overburdened and underfunded."
And she was crying. As
Yeah. And she was herself was just overburdened. This woman she had appointments all around the island just to see.
Yes.
And I think it was. She said it was something like 80% of the clients were homeless people.
80%.
And a lot of them didn't even have a darn cell phone. So you go out and you find that they had disappeared because they were chased out from wherever they were.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me get back to the social worker. She says, "Well, Dave, here's what you do: call the Adult Protective Services statewide, and I know they will help your wife." Well, they sure did help. They put me. They served papers for me. They basically they put me under court. But I was abused. I mean, here I am, homeless in the park, in my wheelchair, and they're saying I'm abusing my wife, my dear.
Because why?
Because these papers that I was served were so full of lies.
Yes, full of lies.
But I'm still trying to get legal help for that. But example. Just basic facts. They got all messed up. They were saying I was living in living in luxury in my folks' Kailua home, but they have a home in Waipahu, and it's not a luxury home either. You know, they were fabricating something there.
So that was bad information for the social worker.
Well, it was bad that she gave me the Adult Protective Services.
Yes.
Let me. This is really. Pertinent to this whole thing. It kind of gets very political. I don't know if you know about Kailua Town, but that place is really. Anyway, this is one of a dear friend of mine too. Do you remember about a year ago? This fellow got stabbed there in Kailua.
Yes.
Robert Coleman.
He was a person without a home. He got stabbed. I think he died.
Yeah, he sure did.
Yeah.
This was about 100 feet from where my wife was. I got there about like 6 in the morning. There was a bunch of police there. And I said, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
And this is Robert Coleman. I'll never forget him. He was a really dear friend of mine.
Yeah.
I used to help him. Matter of fact, here's how the American medical justice system works. This guy, he had vertigo. He had a cane.
Yeah.
He'd fall.
Yes.
Many times on it. He couldn't even get a darn walker.
Yeah.
Because of the bureaucratic red tape you could go through. You had to go through.
And then he was targeted by people who just have a very negative reaction, hatred to people without homes. Is that accurate?
Oh, well, yeah. In this case, it ended up, this is another fellow that was really homeless. A person with a mental illness.
Okay.
Right. And he, and from what I understand, I never got clear on what. It was kind of hard to know with food stamps,
Wow.
They weren't still food stamps or something. They were old. Whatever. I don't know.
I want to lead us into our next interview.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you to pretend that we have a magic wand.
Okay.
What would you wish, just dreaming for a minute, what would you dream would happen that counselors and psychologists and social workers could do to effectively address the challenges you and your colleagues are facing?
You know what? I don't know if you folks have the power either. It's all in the hands of the political elites in this country. And I'm talking about the press too. I'm talking about this damn paper, the monopoly paper, which is pretty much, especially nowadays, is a single source of, and a few TV news stations. Newscasters and that kind of stuff. And they're the ones that are speaking, and then they're the ones that. Well, this is a good example. Homeless man accused of murder. Here's the kind of picture they put up of
yeah.
Now, I see you folks really don't have much power yourselves to go before the media. This is a power elite bunch of people, media, middle class, and then the corporate class.
Yeah.
All they give a damn about is how much they're going to invest. But
would one suggestion is for mental health professionals to work together to develop more political activism to affect the system? Is that something you'd suggest?
Oh yeah, anything that could affect it. Of course,
how would you respond to people that say political activism is not what counselors or social workers or psychologists should do? How would you respond to that?
Well, you know what? I would say that's what is really lacking. Really, everything, all the movements from the beginning of America that succeeded, the anti-slave movement,
women's movement,
the movement, the
persons with disabilities.
Oh yeah, civil rights movement.
Civil rights movement.
It came from the grassroots until you got enough people. But the problem now is mostly the monopolized media.
Yeah.
They don't focus on it,
Yeah.
and so people they watch Fox News.
Yes. Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's a whole uninformed population that really, unfortunately, way too many of them are just trying to survive themselves.
Well, I'm hoping that the time you take and the projects we can work on together and film will help our community of professionals, mental health professionals, to gain new knowledge and insight to what's going on with people with homeless and to make positive contributions.
Yeah.
So that'll be the focus of our next meeting together.
Oh,
I really appreciate your time today.
Okay.
Yeah? Any closing comments you want to make on this first interview?
Well, thank you very much. And I just I think there needs to be, things have to come to a human level. That's all there is to it. Because what we've done is we've taken this group, this population, this group of people. I mean, you might as well call them the end people. Excuse the word, but now they're the HSL people, the homeless people. And they're the new end people. They are even in Hawaii. And most of them are genuine, humble people that got into because of this broken, corrupted system.
Yes.
Are never going to be able to get back on their feet
unless the system changes.
Unless things change radically.
Yes, radically.
And a really good start is just any little thing. We've been lobbying at the Capitol for years now.
You had an opportunity to view a little bit of David's story in this particular component of taking it to the streets. As a mental health practitioner, what sort of general impressions do you have about David as you listen to his story?